Our guest is the Member of Parliament for Yatta constituency, Robert Basil. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well. We've been told to stop calling you people, Mheshimiwa. Good morning, mfanyikazi.
Yes, we are people servants.
Good morning, Mtumishi.
Mtumishi, yes, Mtumishi is the word. Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
It's a hot seat of the situation. I'm good to have you back here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Siti, give Mtumishi the day's proverb.
Yes.
People servants.
All right. Dear Mtumishi, the proverbs for today come from the Central African Republic. You know how often we say the Republic of Kenya, the Republic of Uganda, but ordinarily, anecdotally, we say Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. Central African Republic are not waiting for you to decide for them. They are called Central African Republic. Ujue kabisa. Okay? Now, the proverb of the day. If you show your strength, battle will find you.
If you show your strength, battle will find you.
It will.
What's the interpretation of this one,
It
Robert?
means you don't tell your people your plans. In other words, keep your secrets to yourself. Otherwise, if you tell people before, then someone will come up with a strategy to counter your plans.
Keep all your cards close to your chest.
Very, very close to the chest. Vaka ma vest. Iko tu hapo tu.
Hapa. Wasijue your next moves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you think that's what's happening in our politics?
Well, for now, Kenyan police are so dynamic. No one knew that Raila will be the savior of Ruto government. But apparently, that is the case. That's the truth we have today. Where Raila has moved to government, ODM is part of government now, and now we are back to the drawing board as Azimio.
Yeah, Robert.
Yes.
ODM has released numerous statements saying, no, we are not in this crumbling government.
No, but you see...
And we shall not enter into this crumbling government. Individuals may have gone. Those individuals may have been our topmost leaders in the party, but the party has not.
Does it need a genius to tell you that there was a negotiation? There's no way the top leaders from ODM would be given the most precious slots in government if there wasn't Raila's hand to it. And that's why we say, as much as they want to be both in government and in opposition, the truth is they've already left the government.
Were they given education and health? Because in my mind, those are the most precious ministries.
If you talk of treasury, where the money is, and then you move to energy, and then you move to mining, those are very precious.
The two ministers I mentioned, the ones which touch most lives.
Which ones?
Health and education.
Touching lives is one thing.
It depends.
Touching money is what matters. So, is Azimio then in opposition or in government?
Is Azimio in existence?
We talk of, if you talk of Azimio, the Azimio we have now, the leader is His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. And that is the Azimio which is with the Kenyans. When you talk of ODM, which was a member of the coalition, as much as they insist they are part of us, of course, not all ODM members have left. There are those who think, who still are with the Kenyans. And those are the few who are still holding on. But when you talk of the top leaders from ODM, these have already joined the government. And that's why we say Azimio now is not about just the parties, but the citizens. The Kenyans who feel they've been betrayed, Kenyans who feel the frustrations, Kenyans who want good governance, those are the Kenyans with Azimio. And if you talk of opposition now, it is the citizens. You saw Gen Z is going to parliament and even, agitating and making those very prolonged protests. That is to indicate you or to tell you the opposition is not just Azimio, but the Kenyans now.
So the opposition is the Gen Z. So what is Azimio?
Azimio...
It's not in government. It's not opposition. What is Azimio?
The Azimio parties, or the people, as I've said, Azimio now is in principle, now the outfit, where now we talk of the main parties, with Wiper being the lead in the coalition, Jubilee. are there now the citizens with us? Because it's not just having a political outfit, but having a party or a coalition that resonates with the needs and the realities of citizens.
Okay.
We talk of Gen Zs, they are complaint of unemployment, opulence in government, corruption in government. Those are the agitations.
Those are the issues that we are raising.
Yeah.
And even that led to the dissolution of cabinet and the formation of a new cabinet.
Yes.
And the nominees went through a parliamentary vetting process. And the leader of Wiper, who you're now saying is the leader of Azimio, the last man standing, Kalonzo Musyoka,
Yes.
had asked the leaders of Wiper in parliament to vote no.
But there was no vote.
Okay. Are there members of Wiper who sat in the Committee on Appointments of the National Assembly?
Two.
Yes. How did they vote?
You see, when you look at the Committee on Appointments, there was no voting there. It was about scrutinizing the candidates. It's like when you go for an interview, you ask, what is your name? What is your motivation for this position? What new value are you bringing on board? But as I said, initially...
So the report that that committee presented to Parliament was unanimous. Approve 19, reject 1.
Yes.
So the Wiper members were part of the unanimous decision of the committee to approve the 19.
Yes.
This goes against what Kalonzo had asked them to do.
What you can look at in that particular, in the vetting report is about the signature. I don't know whether they signed the report, because when they tabled in Parliament, normally in terms of those who signed, that was not brought to our attention. But what I can tell you for sure is the position in terms of many of us, including myself, and I said it initially, this was more of a flawed process, a rubber stamping exercise. Because how do you expect, for example, a member of parliament to vet a fellow body, a fellow member of parliament, who are all sitting together? That was, as much as the constitution says so, I think it was more of a rubber stamping exercise. And myself, I also, although I was not given a chance to contribute on the floor because it was a bit skewed, they were only selecting members who they think were not or were more supporting the whole process. You saw it very clear, ESCC writing to the committee, telling them someone, for example, Oparanya in this case, he was not supposed to even have appeared to the panel because ESCC said we have reservation to that particular nominee. But what happened? They allowed the gentleman, and he was cleared through, Yes. Myself as a member of parliament, before you are allowed to vie for position, there are minimum requirements. One of it is ESCC certificate, clearance from ESCC. Number 2 is HELB certificate, meaning you have no outstanding debt with the government. But here you have someone who has been appointed, and the ESCC says clearly, categorically, don't clear that particular individual. But they all turned a deaf ear to the whole, to the request from ESCC. When in principle, we should be in the front line to safeguard Chapter 6 of the Constitution and ensure we fight graft.
Mtumishi Basil, the senior most Wiper member in the National Assembly is the deputy minority leader.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He sits and was sitting in that committee on appointments.
Yes.
He sat throughout.
Yes.
He even asked questions to those members that you're saying should not even have appeared. That tells you that Wiper was okay with the process.
No, I don't think you can use that.
The senior most Wiper leader in Parliament sitting in that committee and participating in the process tells you that Wiper has rubber stamped the process.
What I would tell you, and I don't think it's is right to say that the senior most Wiper member of Parliament sanitized the process. What I would say, in principle, him as individual, I think he only abided by the, the doctrines of the appointing committee. And that is where basically as a team member, you are supposed to, to participate in the process. But if I was him, I would have withdrawn my participation in the committee. So let me not speak for Honorable Robert Ibu in that matter. But personally, based on my conscience, I don't think I would have sat in that committee knowing very sure. For example, EFCC wrote it very clearly and they said this particular person should not be allowed even to participate, even to appear to the panel. So for those who participated, I think they did it based on their own volition. But let me not speak for them.
So it's the same thing. For those who have joined government, ODM tells us, they did it on their own volition. Wiper is now telling us, for those that participated in this, what they now call flawed process of vetting, were doing it on their own volition.
But they did not participate.
Same language.
They did not participate in the appointing committee as Wiper nominees. They participated as members of parliament appointed to the vetting committee. For example, when I participate in the youth committee where I sit, I don't sit there to represent the interests of my party. I sit there to represent, one, the interests of citizens, that's the Kenyan citizens, and also to play my role as a people's representative in the August House.
I'm sorry, but there's a principle. You go in there on a certain principle, and that's the principle that brings you here as members of Wiper. When members of Wiper sat and said, you know what, we are not going to sanction this nonsense that we're seeing going on, and the party leader of Wiper says, in fact, my advice to my members who are in that parliament is
to vote no.
Vote no.
And you know what should have happened?
The leader of the troops of Wiper is the Honorable Robert Boy, the minority leader, deputy minority leader in the House.
Yes.
He goes and sits in the committee throughout. When a committee report comes out, it's unanimous, which means that he was okay with it.
Let me first...
So it means Wiper was just telling us...
Let me first make
publicly, Wiper is telling us one thing, but in reality, Wiper is doing the exact opposite.
Let me clarify something. When our party leader said, we vote no, he meant in a situation where there is division in parliament. Division is where we object. And that's where when you have numbers. So when you have numbers and you go to the voting process, like we did for the finance bill, in such a case, the Wiper leader, our leader, said we vote no. But there was no moment for such to happen. So sitting in the vetting process is completely different from the voting itself, because voting is generated when there is division in parliament. And when that division occurs, as members, that is the point at which you cast your vote in respect either to, for example, if the party position is we vote no based on certain reasons, then in such a case you do so. Or you vote based on your own personal reservations. Okay. For example, in the finance bill, most of us we voted based on how we feel and also looking at the clauses in the bill and what our electorates wanted to see done, because you have to represent them. Remember, we are representing the people, not necessarily the party.
I will cede the ground shortly, but I'll cede with this. Voting is not only when there is division.
Yes.
Even an acclamation is a vote. Even the preparation and presentation of a committee report to the House is a vote.
But the vote...
Because if a member objects to what the committee, the report is saying, the member can declare that I object. I dissented to what the majority have said in this report.
Yes.
There has been no dissent. There was acclamation. A couple of voices were heard saying, no.
You know,
I see it.
If you talk of the acclamation, that one I tend to disagree, because sometimes, you know, when you listen to the Speaker of Parliament, sometimes the nays and the, you know, those who are saying the highs and all that, you may not very well make a clear distinction in terms of the voices who are the majority. Sometimes because the Speaker, as much as he's supposed to be impartial, he tends to lean towards the majority party, and that is the government, the UDA party. In this case, the vote which the party leader meant was a vote whereby there is division in parliament and we are all called to make our vote, either yes vote or no vote. That moment did not happen. In this case, when you say like in the voting in the committee, if you have you are dissenting voice or you have a reservation, you are not supposed to append your signature to the report. In this case, I cannot defend them, neither support them, because I don't know whether they appended their signature or they did not. As I've stated clearly, the report which was tabled in Parliament, we did not have a chance to look at how many of the members ascended to the report. And we presume maybe Honorable Ngui and Honorable Mule did not assent to that. But let me not speak on their behalf. But what I would tell you, the cabinet slots for some, for example, those with EACC outstanding cases, should not have been cleared.
Okay.
That is my position. Because we are talking of a country where we are supposed to respect, uphold the Constitution. And the Chapter 6 of the Constitution is very clear on integrity issues. So if you have an outstanding case in court, and even the body authorized to defend or to ensure issues of graft are well fought and tackled in this country, says clearly, don't clear this person, then we should have respected that. There are so many, if it's about balance in terms of numbers, ethnic balancing, there are so many lawyers who could have been appointed and who could have fit into that position. So why would we just get or appoint people who have issues or who have questionable integrity issues? So that is the position. That's what exactly many Kenyans are asking themselves.
Can we look at
Do we have a shortage of professionals or experts who can do the job? The answer is no.
It's no.
Yeah.
Let's look at Saviour as a coalition.
Yes.
And the parties that are left, we know that, not Kenya wanted to withdraw, or rather actually did withdraw its membership in Azimio. ODM says it's still a member of Azimio. Wiper is obviously there and a few others here. What does that mean for the stature of the coalition? Because, I mean, call it what you want to call it, but ODM is part of government now. Can you straddle both sides? ODM part of government, ODM part of the coalition? What exactly is happening with the coalition? And is it really firmly in a place of opposition today?
What ODM are doing by spreading their wings, one in government, the other one in opposition, is a watermelon kind of character.
It's interesting that you choose that fruit, but okay. You could have said avocado, but it's fine. Especially as your party leader is anyway.
We know the proponent of watermelon, the person who came up with the name.
Yes.
And it exactly depicts
Yes.
the kind of character he has. When they want to be one side in government, the other side in opposition, in principle, it means they are extremely undecisive. Because you need to be decisive, you need to make a choice. Either you are with the Kenyans or you are with the Kenya Kwanza government.
Oh, this is interesting that you say that, because what you're saying now is Azimio is either you're with Kenyans or you're with government. So there's a split. That's what you're saying. And Azimio is on the side of people. Now what is happening,
they are pretending to be with the citizens at the same time to be with the government. And you can't have both. You have to choose one. And that's why I say that.
But they already have both. I mean,
currently they have.
You're saying they can't have both, and that's exactly what they have.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How do you expect ODM,
yes,
who claim to be in opposition, to meaningfully deal or oppose issues or even correct government on matters that are pertinent to Kenyans? The answer is no. Because remember Opiyo Wadai now, who used to be a very strong opposition leader. Remember, he was a minority leader. Today is the Minister for Energy. How do you expect the Azimio, I mean ODM for that matter, to meaningfully even question their former and their current colleague? Because he has not departed from the party. He says he has, but in principle, that's more superficial departure. But the interior, if you look at the DNA, is it still an ODM member?
If I were to answer
and it's being proposed to the ODM.
I would say if within the ODM, unless this is a charade that we're being entertained with,
yes,
the governor of Siaya, who is a member of the ODM, has been absolutely critical
yes,
of what ODM has done. And he has spoken and spoken and spoken. Now, I actually do not see what the big issue is about. I honestly don't. Because in an early hour when you look in the newspapers, I mentioned it. This is part of the political culture that you, politicians, have forced down our throats as Kenyans. It didn't start with this parliament. 1997, 1998, and if you look at all the activities that took place then, this is just a modern day replication of it. When you talk about the government of national unity, that's what we called it then, in 2006. Now we're calling it a broad-based government. Same thing. If you look at the details, there's really not much of a difference.
Let me tell you.
If you talk about people who have a record that should not allow them anywhere near a public office, it's not the first time we're seeing it. We've seen lists being provided by the Excellent Anti-Corruption, and the people calmly sail in and they go in and they're given appointments. We're not seeing anything that hasn't been done before. And these things, the people who are supposed to be the check and balance has always been Parliament, the Parliament that you're in. And that Parliament has failed resoundingly in being the buffer that we expect them to be. So, voila, as my colleague Ndu would say, here we are, looking at yet another turn of events where our political class are doing what they do best. And we are observing. What you're right about, you said, this time around they're not getting away with it because we have an opposition. And that movement is called the Gen Z. It's not yet a political party.
Citizens.
Yes, exactly.
Tumishi, let me ask you a question quickly. I know everyone's going to break, but what if Kalonzo Musyoka had been asked or been given an opportunity for one of these positions?
I think...
and he accepted. And he accepted.
I don't want to speak on his behalf, but what I would say categorically, people used to doubt the strength of the character of His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. And now it's very clear, he's one of the very principled politicians we have. And why would I say so? He was already offered this position you're talking about.
And he refused, declined.
But he turned it down.
Okay.
Why did he do so? It's because Kenyans and Gen Zs, the agitation they had was not about positions. It was not about broad-based government. There was no disunity in government. What they were agitating for is, one, end to opulence, arrogance in government, state officers, issues of graft within government, and also elements to do with tribalism when it comes to delivery of services. Those are the most critical issues that meant Gen Zs and Kenyans, millennials and others, to join the protest.
Which way you're saying that you can use the word integrity with reference to political leaders in this country. Is it really possible? And I'm being broad-based here.
So as we're going to the break, you talked about, what is it that people were agitating for? They were saying, we have gotten to a point where we are done. We are done with how the government is treating its citizens. We are done with those in government are behaving. There's bad manners.
Correct.
There's open show of opulence, and they're showing it as if they are basically using taxpayers' money to enrich themselves.
Correct.
Not a commensurate service delivery to the people. Not much of public participation, meaningful public participation, where citizens are involved in decision making. And people are saying, no, this is not what we want. But then it appears like those in leadership were hearing a completely different thing. Because the response, as you're saying, the response was the formation of a broad-based government was not what was asked for.
You know, in life, there are people we call opportunists. And I think the ODM members tends to fit to that because they saw a chance. They all ran to join the government. And that is why we are saying, I don't think the whole issue is sorted. Because people think with the protests having calmed down, the whole situation has been, contained. But I would say that, for example, I give a very metaphorical kind of statement by saying that, let's say you have a hood and you don't treat the wood and you bandage the wood. Have you solved the problem? No. This wood will continue, getting worse and worse, and eventually it might erupt to something else. That is not what Kenyans wanted to see. Kenyans want a very progressive country, a country that is reflecting to the issues of citizens, the country whereby opportunities are available to everyone. Yesterday, the crowd you saw in Kisii tells you there is high level of unemployment, because being a working day, where were all those people coming from? It tells you majority of Kenyans are either idle or they are not meaningfully engaged. And as a government, if I was head of state, I would go to the drawing board. I think through asking myself, what should I do to open opportunities for all these citizens? Because assume you are in the US and you wanted to have a conversation to your people. I don't think in a working day you would even get such a number, even a quarter of the people who we saw at Kisii. So there is a big problem that needs to be sorted or that needs to be solved. We should not assume that everything is okay. And that is the kind of assumption that the government does. Because remember, most of the youth, they are leaving college with nowhere to go. You know, if you look at appointments, they are distributed based on who do you know or who is lobbying for you. That is not what the kind of Kenya we want to see. Look at the appointments. Some of them, for example, I would give an example in education. The former CS, after Kenyans say we don't want him, the president decided to consult him and ask him, since the Kenyans don't want you, who can you nominate? And he nominated his former running mate, who they were running for governor position at Kisii. So you'd ask yourself, should we be appointing a buddy system kind of a government, or should we be looking for people with the right qualification and experience to deliver for this country? So meritocracy doesn't seem to apply in Kenya. If I was in the position Ruto was, and in order to redeem myself and build the trust Kenyans want to see, I would even have appointed an independent consulting hiring company. We have an example like Okoh Associates, who are renowned, who could have developed TORs for each ministry and asked Kenyans across the political device to make applications and beyond ethnic foundations. When they make application, if there are millions, you subject them to a written interview. After that, you go to orals. Then, as the end of state, you are given, let's say, 3 from each category to pick from. That could have built the trust Kenya wanted to see. But if you sit down and you ask my brother, now since Kenya don't want you, do you have someone who you can nominate, who I can appoint on your behalf?
Yes.
We saw it in Linduri, when the former CS for agriculture, because the outcry was beyond. He was among the first to be impeached in parliament. What happened? His PA is now the CS. So do you expect the PA to do things differently from his boss? He can't do something different from his boss. Yes.
You give me hope. You actually do.
Yes.
When a leader is this idealistic, it is good. Because it means we can still talk about how things ought to be, as opposed to simply saying, this is the way we are, and we more or less give up this is the way they are. But a slight problem here, though. People have ideals as the very forefront of the way they look at things when they do not have direct vested interest or direct power or position. All these leaders we talk about, President Raila, Kalonzo, have uttered the same things that you're uttering now at some point in their lives. And with the same vigor and energy, and you feel, okay, yeah, sour. These guys got it. And we've seen all of them in positions of authority. None of them have been president except Ruto. But the president still speaks exactly the same way. But unfortunately for him is president.
He's the one to do.
Yeah, he's the one to do. It can't be somebody else. He's the one to do. And unfortunately, we do not see the things that he says he's going to do happening. and we don't see it consistently. And I don't need to interpret it. I just need to be alive and I can see it. I don't even require analysis. I just need to look. But it didn't start with him. The Uhuru government was similar. Many projects started. What was remarkable was just the sheer numbers that were incomplete. Then we get to a new government where we do something quite interesting. We are very innovative as Kenyans. We open projects that had already been completed and opened before. Okay? The very thing we said we would do, when asked, we say we're going to do more, and yet we have not done what we're supposed to do before. See, and at the end of it, what is lost in this entire conversation is that there's an entire citizenry just hoping for service delivery, and they just don't seem to get that service delivery. What they hear is words from political leadership.
What I would tell you, what we need as country, as Kenya, is patriots. I know most of Kenyans have lost hope with so many politicians, but I will tell you, not all of us are indeed politicians. Actually, the word politician is synonymous to lies. Personally, I try to dissociate myself from that. And I think it's because of the way we have been socialized. We may take years, but one day we'll get that person who says, or who acts, or who walks the talk. Not just people who speak to make other people happy, or just to tell people what they want to hear. I would give reference to Tanzania. No one knew whether Tanzania at a point in their lifetime they will get someone like Magufuli. But the guy came from nowhere and became the head of state. And within the period he was the head of state, he made a very solid and long-term impact that would be felt by generations to generations. If all of us continue to be, we remain disillusioned, we may not have the person we are looking for. So what we can do, let's remain hopeful, and one day we'll have that politician or that leader who means what he says. For now, we may struggle, but I've told you it all begins with socialization process. How you have been socialized, where you have worked before, is like a computer. Garbage in, garbage out. You don't expect to have chapati using ugali flour. You cannot have. So it all takes time. And if you look at where we are, I know many Kenyans have reached a point where they are losing hope. But I'm going to tell them enough. All is not lost. There's still room, because even the Gen Zs at some point, they'll also become leaders.
Even this president we have, if we're to be honest, can actually bring about this change that we talk about, this same one.
He can if he wants.
This one?
Yes.
He actually can.
That's what I'm saying, he can. Because it doesn't need, it's all a matter of, this is what Kenyans want, and you do based on what they want. And very importantly, like what I've been noticing in our country, we really don't invest in even data and use of research.
Oh, actually we do. We do. If it's just research, data, collating, documenting.
Very good, but in terms of using it, that's a totally different story.
Do we use it?
Selectively.
Can I give you an example?
When it suits our purpose, yes.
Can I give you a reference? And it's something I've stated, if you listen to my speech in Parliament, or my contribution. We have a fund we call Equalization Fund. But do you know how that fund is used? Instead of serving the purpose of bridging the gap between areas that have been marginalized since 1963, the fund is not utilized in that manner. And how should we make the fund more useful? If they were relying on data, baseline data, to show the level of inequality, the disparities across the country, today that fund would make sense to Kenyans. But it is so ironical. You see some of the areas selected to benefit from the fund. Some are even, I will give an example, for example, the other time Kericho was in that list. And a place which is very much known, what we call prima facie knowledge, like a place like Marsabit, for example, was missing in the list. So you ask yourself, what parameter, what criteria was used to select beneficiaries of this fund?
It's a reflection of what some people have referred to. I personally do not like that particular term, bad manners, because you are actually euphemizing something quite terrible. But it's part of our culture. It's the same reason why you will be pronounced as guilty by a court, and our laws also state you should not hold public office, and yet you will. That is what we do in this country. But you know something? If you look at the reality of our politics, perhaps the message that the Gen Zs are telling us, and which we haven't heard quite clearly, that perhaps all these people who hold high offices or the political class should actually cease working, because they are the ones who entrench these things that we have. Every time you think there's an opportunity for change, something happens, you feel, but we're not moving, are we? Okay? So relying on them to bring about the change, that I think is a waste of time, really. I don't see they're going to do things in the manner that suits them, in the manner that they're used to.
They're comfortable.
Yeah, it works.
Status quo works.
It works.
Right?
It works.
And that's where now the citizen then comes in and has to engineer this change.
Yes.
Because just like you said, I mean, every time you interview people who are not, and the ones who are controlling things in government, they will speak about what is best for this country. They know clearly what is best for this country.
They do.
Until they get there. And they again know what is best for this country, which is exactly opposite what they were saying before. We've seen them. The Kenya Kwanza leaders who are here now, who were being ostracized in the last 5 years of the Uhuru administration, were clear on what needs to be done. 5 years before that, when they were controlling government, they were clear, and it was completely different. Now again, clear.
So,
those ODM leaders who have now joined government, last year, when they were calling for the maandamano in the streets, they were very clear on what needed to be done.
That's why
they're now in government. You'll see the clarity.
If you listen to me carefully, and that is when I was speaking, I said, it all depends on how you be socialized. If you look at a country like the US, some of the advanced economies, before they give you certain positions, they do background check. They ask, they go even from primary level, what kind of a person have you been over the years? Some of these characters are built over time. And that's why some people say it just to make sure they please you. But their historical background doesn't reflect on what they say. That is where we fail or we go wrong. We elect people normally without having that very holistic background check. If we did that, today we'll be having the right leaders in office. But simply because we don't do that, that's why we have the people we have. And now it has even, in the previous years, it was even worse. Why? Money factor. Money has been a key ingredient in our politics. A voter, you can't speak to a voter and you say, I'm done, I'm going home. They tell you, we normally listen with our mouth, not with our ears. And that is where the problem begins. So we have to change not our mindset alone, but our character, from the voter himself all the way to the leader. Because the voter is there, you call like you are, instead of making a policy-based politics, is more of a money-based politics. And that's the kind of politics we have been seeing over the years. If that can stop, I'm hoping in 2027, if we can have a new change in the way we approach politics and use policy as a measure of the persons, of the kind of leaders we want to see, then we might be on the right step to get in the right leaders and transforming our country meaningfully. But if we don't do that, then we are going to get the same crop of leaders. And that is where you have been seeing people accused of opulence, they're back to government. People with the graft issues, they're back to government. And that can only be sorted if you vet from the voter when you are electing, don't base money as one of the key factors to engage a leader. But listen to what the leader is saying. Do some background check. Where did you go to school? After school, what did you do? Where did you work?
Because
how was your deliverables at work?
Because
for example,
if the bare minimum is met, and that's the thing, that we don't put people up to the standard of the bare minimum.
Yes.
Nobody's asking that you be a genius in whatever. We're saying at the very barest minimum, be able to do 1, 2, 3, have the right sense of mind. Then to say that there is an entire people that you're responsible for in whatever capacity. So if we're holding folks up to the barest minimum, then there is a possibility that when they come into that position, they will actually do what they're supposed to do.
Correct.
Now, while I support the idea of an independent body for some of these things, I think what we are doing by that is that we're letting folks go scot-free. Because if we say bring in an independent body, that means essentially we're saying you as members of parliament who have been tasked with the responsibility, you've shown us that you can't, for whatever reason, that you'll be compromised, that you'll be captured, whatever it is. So we're saying bring in an independent body to do 1, 2, 3. But we are saying no. That if we hold it to the barest minimum, then that we should expect that if you're vetting somebody, that you too will hold that individual to the barest minimum. That's why we give you, what is that word they say? Ultimate power is done what? Lent. Given. What? In the Constitution.
It is delegated.
Delegated. Right? So the barest, we're not even holding to the barest minimum. At the vote, in parliament, at vetting, and we're not even saying go here. We're saying just get above the water. Right? So why is it so difficult for that bare minimum to even be seen, yet achieved, not even achieved, to even be seen and say, let's hold to that. Let's hold to that. And if we do at whatever level, MCA, Member of Parliament, Senator, Governor, even the President, to say that this is the bar, this is where it is set. Following all of these other things come to play.
The President will
but
say
we don't
that.
even see the bar.
If it's saying, it will be said. This is the bar. That, without a shadow of a doubt, it will be said. It will even be described. Mheshimiwa, as for the independence, they'll bring that independent and company associates. They'll bring. You get here in this Kenya. That independence will be one-sided. Have you remember there's a guy called Kamago? Is it Komago?
Jose Kamago.
Jose, the guy who was inside the server.
In that case, he was independent. When he got here, how independent did he become? You know, the reality that we live here is actually daunting. It's very daunting. It actually required what we saw the Gen Zs doing. Young people who don't have half measures. They're saying, we don't want it. Absolutely, take it out. Because if you leave even a bit of it, it'll corrupt whatever it is you're trying to say. Take it out. And it's a good thing they did, because we then saw the response of the political class, and all they did was retreat a little bit, regroup, okay? And then formulate what works for them well. And this is what we have, okay? Now, there are those who say we shouldn't wait to see. I am going to wait to see how the interest of the citizenry is going to be served. When you
by the cabinet, or by what?
Oh, no, by this new swanking government of national unity, broad-based government of national unity, whatever it is that we want to call it. I want to see, I want to see it, because it will instruct those of us who want change to actually understand that so long as certain individuals are still in position of authority, no change will come about.
Forget about it.
The problem, and that's why myself, I don't think I'm as excited as I would have been if we got people, particularly people with very clear and very solid performance history. But if you look at the group we have, like more than half of those who are sent off came back.
Why being kind?
And the ODM team have joined. And if you ask yourself, and some of the remarks coming up, there's someone who said, I'm not going to say names of who said so, but someone said, even Luos are people. For the first time, we have a CS from the Luo community.
Yes.
That's a very tribal statement. And that's what is hailing this country. Because it means that person or the expectation of such a person is this person who has been nominated that position to serve interests of that community. When in actual sense, as a state officer, you are supposed to serve the country, not even the appointing authority.
Sure.
But with the kind of remarks coming from some individuals, they make us wonder, when will we ever shed off that tribal thinking?
We're in the same bus.
If you leave Kenya, for example, myself and you, we go to, let's say, outside Africa, they'll say we saw 2 black men. They'll never say we have seen 2 Kenyans. And they'll not even go down and say, even not simplify and say, I've seen a Kamba and maybe a Luya. They'll not say such. They'll only talk of 2 black people have been spotted somewhere. So that is the approach we need to have. Let's drop this tribal ethnic thinking.
Bro,
and I've seen it happening.
Let me just help you. We will not, okay?
Tumalizia hapo.
Haitafanyika. Na tuendelee.
Robert Basil is the Mtumishi representing the people of Yatta in the National Assembly. He's been our guest for this hour. Keep it here for more conversations.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.